The night sky was burning, the stars above were silent. But below, the battlefield screamed. Laser fire flashed, ships exploded, and warriors roared in every direction. In the middle of it all, one human stood tall, Captain Rion. He was bleeding, tired, and outnumbered, but he didn't run. He dropped his weapon slowly, his hands rising in the air. The Veltari, a fierce alien warrior clan, circled him like wild beasts. Their armor was black like ash, their eyes glowing with heat. One of them growled. "The human surrenders," another laughed. "Take him alive. We'll show him off like a prize." They kicked his knees, forced him to the ground, and chained his wrists. Ryan didn't resist. He looked at the stars one last time and whispered, "I'm in." They dragged him across the rocky path deep into the cold mountains. The Veltari called it the Den of Champions. No outsider had ever entered it alive. Ryan was their trophy now, their victory symbol. They tied him to a pillar in the center of their hall. Veltari of all ages came to look at him like a strange beast. Children threw stones, warriors spit at him, and the elders stayed silent. But Ryan didn't cry, didn't beg, didn't even blink. A young alien girl with silver markings on her face asked, "Why isn't he scared?" Her brother replied, "Because he's broken inside." But he was wrong. Rian was not broken. He was watching, listening, waiting. He noticed how the guards changed positions. He saw how the food was stored, how the walls were cracked near the southern exit. Every insult, every bruise, he took it. But in his mind, he was drawing a map that night. When the fire died and the den grew quiet, Ryan whispered into his collar, "Alpha Team." "This is Rion." No one heard him. No one saw the tiny mic in his shirt. "Phase 1 complete," he said. "I've made it inside." The next morning, they held a war feast. Meat roasted over fire. Wild songs filled the air. Ryan was still tied to the pillar, his eyes half closed. A warrior approached with a sharp blade. He pointed it at Ryan's chest and shouted, "Beg for your life, human." The hall grew silent. Everyone turned to watch. The children leaned forward, waiting to see fear. But Ryan smiled. He said nothing. The warrior roared and moved closer. Blade against Ryan's skin. Still, Ryan stayed calm. "Why won't you scream?" The warrior shouted, confused and angry. Ryan looked into his eyes and replied softly, "Because I'm not your prisoner." The hall gasped. Everyone stared at him like he was mad. "You are in chains," said the elder, stepping forward. "You are food for the fire." Ryan lifted his head and said with quiet strength, "Chains break." They didn't understand him. They thought he was just trying to act brave, but that night something happened. A young alien boy, hungry and scared, tried to sneak some food. A drunk warrior caught him and raised his hand to strike. Suddenly, a loud crack echoed. The warrior flew across the room, hitting the wall. The boy fell back in fear. All eyes turned to Ryan, still chained to the pillar. Yet somehow he had moved. Somehow, he had struck. The Veltari warriors stood frozen. "How did he do that?" One whispered. "He didn't even leave his place," said another. The elder stepped forward, eyes narrow. "You are not normal," he said. "What are you?" Ryan just looked at the fire and replied, "I'm the beginning of something new." In the shadows, a young alien girl watched with wide eyes, the same one who asked why he never begged. Now she whispered to herself, "He's not here by accident." And she was right. Rion wasn't captured. He had allowed himself to be taken, but why? What was his plan? And what would happen if the Veltari found out the truth? The answer was coming, and it would change everything, because the human they thought was a trophy was actually the spark that would set their world on fire. The sun rose slowly over the cold mountain peaks inside the Veltari den. Warriors sharpened blades, trained in circles, and roared their war songs. But at the center of it all, Captain Ryan sat still, chained, silent, watching. They laughed at him. They believed the human was nothing now, just a breathing statue. "He won't last the week," one warrior said. "He's already lost his spirit," said another. But they were all wrong. Ryan's eyes moved with purpose. Every face he saw, every voice he heard, he remembered. He was learning how they thought, how they lived, how they fought. When they tossed dry bread at his feet, he didn't touch it. When they kicked dirt on him, he didn't flinch. They thought he was weak. But he was patient. He waited until night came again. The fire in the hall dimmed. Shadows danced along the stone walls. That's when something happened. A small alien boy crept close to the food storage. His hands shook as he reached for a piece of meat. His ribs showed through his skin. He hadn't eaten in days. But just as he grabbed the food, a deep growl echoed. A warrior guard stomped forward. He raised his arm, ready to strike the boy hard. The boy froze, eyes wide, mouth open in silent fear. Then a blur of movement, a flash of force. The warrior flew backward like a leaf in the wind. Crashing into a stone wall, the hall shook. Food rolled across the floor. Gasps filled the air. All eyes turned toward the human. Captain Ryan was still sitting, still chained, but his eyes glowed slightly in the firelight. Calm, cold, focused. How did he do that? A warrior whispered. He didn't even move, said another. Confused and frightened, the boy scrambled away into the dark, holding the food safe now. The elder of the clan stepped forward. Eyes locked on Ryan. You, he growled. You are not just a man. Ryan looked at him and said nothing. Only a small smile curved on his lips. The Veltari were not used to fear, not their own. Now they whispered among themselves. Is he using human tech? Is he a weapon? Was his capture planned? The young alien princess, hiding behind the stone curtains, watched carefully. She remembered what her mother once told her. If a man comes and does not scream, do not fear him, listen to him. She never understood that line before, but now watching Rayon, she began to feel the meaning. The warriors demanded answers. Speak, human, one shouted. What trick did you use? Another barked. Ryan raised his head slowly. With quiet strength in his voice, he said, There is no trick. You saw what you were meant to see. One of the younger warriors grew angry. He grabbed a spear and marched forward. You think we're fools? He shouted. You're still a prisoner. He raised the spear and lunged, but before it could land, the chains around Ryan's wrists glowed faintly. The spear cracked in midair, split into two pieces like dry wood. The warrior fell back, terrified. The hall went silent. Even the flames in the torches seemed to stop moving. The elder took a deep breath. This human is not normal, he said. He carries something old, something forgotten. A small voice spoke from the shadows. It was the alien princess. She stepped out, her cloak wrapped tight around her. I saw it, she said. The mark behind his neck. The warriors turned. The mark? Asked the elder. She nodded. Yes, she whispered. The old mark of unity. Everyone looked at Ryan again, this time with doubt and curiosity. He lowered his head and closed his eyes. The princess stepped closer, and for the first time Ryan spoke to her. Your people are brave, he said softly. But they are lost, the princess asked. And you? What are you? Ryan opened his eyes and replied, I'm the one who walks into the fire, so others don't burn. The Veltari didn't understand the full meaning. Not yet, but some part of them began to feel it. This man, this human, was not a mistake. That night, the elder sent a private message to a distant tribe. Come quickly, he wrote. We have found something, or someone. Outside the den, the wind howled through the mountains. But deep inside, something new had started to grow. Not fear, not hate, but change. Because the human who looked powerless might be the most dangerous force they had ever known. And the truth? They had brought him inside with their own hands. The real question now was, would they understand him in time? The air inside the Veltari den had changed. Not cold, not warm, just strange, like something heavy but silent had entered their bones. The warriors who once laughed now watched the human with narrowed eyes. They trained harder, sharper, but they didn't sing as loud. Their steps were quicker, more nervous. Captain Ryan still sat in chains, still quiet, still calm, but now, no one called him trophy. No one dared throw stones. Even the children who once mocked him now sat at a distance, whispering stories about his powers. One morning, a small girl placed a bowl of clean water near him. She didn't say a word, and Ryan didn't move. But when she walked away, he gave the faintest nod. That same day, something happened. The Veltari's main gate, made of solid iron and stone, refused to open. Their best techmaster pressed buttons, hit the walls, cursed in 3 languages. Still, the gate didn't move. The elder called it a sign. He stood in front of the warriors and said, The spirits are watching. Something old has returned. Later that evening, one of the storage chambers flooded. The entire food supply for the week was spoiled. No one knew how it happened. There had been no rain, no leak, no damage. It was as if the water had appeared from nowhere. The warriors looked at each other with growing doubt. One whispered, Ever since the human came. Nothing is normal, another said. Maybe he cursed us. But a third voice quietly added, Or maybe he woke something up. That night, Rian was taken outside for the first time. Two guards held spears close to his neck as they led him through the torchlit path. They brought him to the edge of a cliff, where the wind howled like a living thing. The elders stood waiting, beside a strange glowing rock, an ancient object from the Veltari's forgotten history. It pulsed with light when Rian came near. No one had seen it glow for hundreds of years. The elder's voice was quiet but firm. "This stone reacts to bloodlines," he said. "Only those connected to the first piece can make it glow." "Why does it react to you, human?" Rian looked at the stone, then at the stars above. He spoke slowly. "Because your past and my future are the same. You just forgot." The elder narrowed his eyes. "Then tell us," he said, "what is your true mission?" But before Rian could answer, a sharp cry echoed from the shadows. The princess appeared, her cloak flapping in the wind. She ran past the guards and stood between Rian and the edge. Her eyes locked with the elders. "I dreamed of this," she said breathlessly. "When I was a child, I saw this moment. The stone, the stars, and the human. The warriors were stunned. Dreams were sacred among their kind. If the princess saw it long ago, it meant fate was involved." The elder stared at her, torn between tradition and fear. Then he turned back to Rian. "What do you want from us?" he asked. Rian replied with calm strength. "Not what I want," he said. "What you need, unity. Before the storm comes." The elder frowned. "What storm?" he asked. Rian said nothing. Instead, he looked into the distance, where dark clouds were gathering far beyond the mountains. Back in the den, strange things continued. Old carvings on the walls began to glow faintly at night. The tech pads used for communication played voices from the past. And warriors began to have the same dream, a man in chains, standing between two great fires, holding them back with his bare hands. Whispers of prophecy spread through the clan. The young started to ask questions the old had buried. Why do we fight the other clans? Why did the peace end? Why does the human speak with no fear? The Veltari priestess said softly. He carries the signal, the echo of the one who united us before. In a private moment, the princess asked Rian, You knew my mother, didn't you? Rian looked into her eyes and said nothing, but the answer was in his silence. She stepped back, heart racing later. As Rian sat quietly near the stone wall, he whispered into his mic again. Phase 2 beginning. They're starting to listen. But in the shadows, one warrior watched him closely. A warrior with loyalty to the old ways. He clenched his teeth and whispered, This human is poison. We should have killed him on day 1. And just like that, danger returned because while change was beginning, not everyone wanted it. And the one who hated Rian the most was ready to strike. The night was quiet, but tension filled the air like smoke. The Veltari warriors spoke in low voices. Even the flames in the great hall burned softer, as if listening. Captain Rian sat with his back against a stone wall, still chained, still calm, but tonight, something felt different, like old secrets were moving beneath the surface. Ready to rise, one of the younger warriors, named Karvek, had watched Rian for days. He didn't trust the human, not because he feared him, but because he saw something in him, something old, something dangerous, something that reminded him of a story he was told as a child. Karvek waited until the others were asleep. Then he crept close to Rian, holding a sharp blade in one hand. Rian opened his eyes, not surprised, not afraid. You want answers, he said softly. Karvek narrowed his eyes. I want truth, he growled. And I will carve it out if I have to. He moved behind Rian and sliced open the back of his shirt. The cold air touched skin and then Karvek froze. There across Ryan's upper back was a strange symbol. A black mark burned into the skin like it had been branded long ago. The mark was shaped like 2 stars joined by a line of fire. Karvek stepped back, his eyes wide. No, he whispered. That's not possible. The symbol was sacred. It belonged to the Council of Fire Peace, an ancient group from long before the wars. A group that only existed in stories. Karvek ran to the elders, shaking with fear and disbelief within minutes. The great hall was filled with whispers. Everyone gathered around Rian, who now sat with his back exposed. The elder's face turned pale when he saw the mark. This cannot be fake, he muttered. No one outside the council knew this design. The princess stepped forward, eyes shining. I remember that mark, she said. My mother had it on her arm. She told me to find the one who carried it on his back. The hall fell silent. Even the wind outside seemed to stop. Ryan looked at all of them and finally spoke. "I was marked by your past," he said, "because your future needed a reminder." The priestess knelt beside him, her fingers trembling as she traced the edge of the mark. "Only 5 were ever branded like this," she said quietly. 3 died, 1 vanished, and the 5th, she looked into Ryan's eyes, was never supposed to exist. The elder stepped forward slowly. "If you are truly one of the 5, why come to us in chains? Why not walk in through the front gate?" Ryan smiled sadly. "Because pain is the only language your people understand. You wouldn't listen to a messenger, but you'd listen to a prisoner." The room grew colder. Some warriors bowed their heads, others stepped back, afraid. A voice cried out from the corner of the hall, "Lies." It was the jealous warrior who had hated Ryan from the start. He stepped forward, face red with anger. "He's tricking us, using our old stories against us. We should end this now." He raised his blade and charged at Ryan. But before anyone could move, a sudden blast of light pushed him backward. The glowing stone near the fire pulsed again, brighter this time. It responded to Ryan's presence like it remembered him. The warrior flew across the hall, hitting the wall and falling unconscious. Everyone gasped. Even Ryan looked surprised. The elder whispered, "The den accepts him. It has chosen him." Later that night, the princess sat beside Ryan, no longer seeing him as a prisoner. "You knew my mother, didn't you?" she asked softly. Ryan looked at her and finally answered, "She saved me. She said one day I would save her people in return." The princess wiped a tear from her cheek. "She's gone now," she said, "but maybe you're the piece she left behind." Outside, the sky rumbled. Storm clouds were rising across the mountains. Dark shapes moved in the distance, other clans, watching, waiting. Inside the den, the Veltari had a choice to make. Would they hold on to fear or follow the sign given to them? Because now they knew, the man they captured was more than human. He was a piece of their past, and maybe their only hope for a future. But hope always brings danger, and someone in the shadows was planning to kill it before it could grow. Deep beneath the Veltari den, hidden from most eyes, there was a place older than memory. They called it the Fire Cave. No one went there willingly. It was a place of judgment, of silence, of lost voices. The elders believed only cursed ones entered the Fire Cave. Some said it was where spirits punished the proud. Others believed it held messages from the past. But no one really knew, not until that night. Captain Ryan was taken there. Alone, the guards didn't follow him in. They dropped a torch near the entrance and stepped back in fear. "Go," one said. "Face what waits inside. If the cave kills you, we won't touch your bones." Ryan walked into the dark without a word. The stone walls were rough and cold. Flames danced inside the cracks, glowing softly like breathing fire. As he walked deeper, he felt something strange. Not fear, not danger, but like the cave was remembering him. Like it had been waiting. Suddenly the narrow path opened into a round chamber. In the center was a platform made of black glass, and on the walls, ancient carvings. Symbols older than any living Veltari could read. But Ryan could. He touched the wall gently. The carvings lit up under his fingers. They showed scenes from long ago. A human standing between 2 warring clans. Veltari on one side, flame-born aliens on the other. And in the center, peace because of him. Ryan stepped onto the glass platform. It pulsed like a heartbeat under his feet. Then a voice echoed through the chamber. Soft but powerful. "The line remains unbroken," it said. "He walks again." Ryan didn't smile. He simply knelt and whispered, "I am here." Just like she said I would be. Behind him, footsteps echoed. He turned quickly. It was the alien princess, her cloak dragging through the dust. "You shouldn't be here," Ryan said gently. She shook her head. "My dreams led me here," she replied. "I followed the fire." She looked at the glowing walls, then back at him. "What is this place?" she asked. Ryan stood slowly and looked into her eyes. "This is where the truth lives," he said. "Where the lies of war were first told." He pointed to a carving. A Veltari leader shaking hands with a human woman. The princess gasped. "That's my mother," Ryan nodded. "She didn't just fight," he said. "She tried to unite. She wanted peace. Even when everyone else wanted war." Tears formed in the princess's eyes. "She said I'd meet someone like her. She told me to follow the one with silent strength." Ryan took a deep breath. Your mother died trying to build a bridge, he said. She sent a message through space, through time, to call me. The platform began to glow brighter. Symbols floated in the air now, glowing red and gold. A circle of fire surrounded them, but it didn't burn. It felt warm, like a promise. The voice returned. You carry the last spark. What you begin now, they must choose to finish. The princess stepped beside him. What does that mean? She whispered. Rion answered softly. It means I can't force them to change, but I can show them why they must. Suddenly, the ground shook, dust fell from the ceiling, and the fire dimmed far above. In the Veltari den, horns were blowing. Attack. Rival clans had come early. They had seen the storm forming and decided to strike before unity could grow. Ryan turned to the princess. It's time, he said. She looked at him, afraid. What if they don't listen? She asked. He stepped close and placed her hand on the glowing wall. Then we give them something louder than words. Back in the den, chaos had started. Warriors ran in every direction, grabbing weapons, shouting orders, but just as panic peaked, the ground cracked open. A wall near the fire pit broke away, and from the smoke, Ryan and the princess stepped out. Surrounded by glowing symbols, their bodies lit with fire that didn't burn. Every eye turned toward them, every weapon paused. The princess raised her hand. No more silence, she shouted. No more lies. Ryan looked at the warriors and said, Your ancestors left you truth, and you chose to forget. But I didn't. The flames around them rose high, forming a ring of light, and every Veltari felt it. The presence of something ancient, powerful, real, but in the shadows a dark figure loaded a weapon. His aim set not on the warriors, but on the princess. Because when truth rises, enemies rise faster, and the first shot would be the one they never expected. Dark clouds covered the mountains. Thunder rolled across the sky like the drums of war. Far below, 100 fires burned in the distance. The clans had come, and they were not here to talk. Inside the Veltari den, warriors stood ready with spears and rifles. Eyes sharp, hearts pounding, everyone knew this was not a test. This was the beginning of something big. The old war was back, and it was angrier than ever. Captain Ryan stood near the front gate, the princess by his side behind them. The glowing carvings from the fire cave still burned softly on their skin. It was a mark of truth, proof of the past. But truth doesn't stop blades, and proof doesn't stop war. The Veltari elder stepped beside Ryan. We sent no message, he said. They came because they fear what you are awakening. Rion nodded. They don't fear me, he replied. They fear change. The princess stepped forward. Lifting a torch high, they fear peace, she shouted. Because peace takes away their power. Outside the gates, the rival clans roared like wild beasts. They had united, but only to destroy what they didn't understand. Their leaders stepped forward, faces hidden behind war masks. We want the human, one shouted. We want the liar who holds false fire. Ryan stepped forward unarmed. No lies, he said. No tricks. I came to remind you who you used to be, but the clans didn't listen. They raised their weapons, and the storm began. A blast shook the earth as the first shot was fired. Veltari warriors rushed forward to defend their home. Blades clashed, sparks flew, and smoke filled the sky. Ryan stood still for a moment, watching everything. Then he closed his eyes. He pressed the small device under his collar. Phase 3, he whispered. Begin. High above the battlefield, hidden in the clouds, a silent ship powered up. It had waited for his signal. Now it activated a wide-area signal emitter. In every warrior's ear, Veltari or rival, the same ancient melody began to play. A song once sung by all tribes together. A song lost to war, now returned through one human's voice. The fighting paused, warriors looked around, confused. Many of the older fighters dropped their weapons, eyes wide with memory. Where did this song come from? Someone whispered. I know this tune, said another, tears in his eyes. It was my mother's lullaby. The rival leaders shouted, Don't listen! Fight! But the battle had already changed. In the middle of it all, Ryan walked forward. The firelight danced on his face. He stood between both sides, just like the carvings in the cave, and he spoke loud and clear. You all remember the song, he said, because your hearts remember peace. The wind stopped. The thunder faded, even the fire seemed to hold its breath. For a long moment, no one moved. The warriors lowered their weapons. It was working. Ryan had done the impossible. He made enemies pause. But peace never comes without a price. In the shadows, the jealous Veltari warrior, who always hated Ryan, took aim. He didn't believe in peace, he believed in power, and peace would take that away from him. He pointed the rifle not at Ryan but at the princess. He whispered, "Let's see how strong his dream is without her," and he fired. The sound of the shot cracked through the silence like lightning. The bullet raced through the air, fast and deadly. Ryan saw it. His body moved before his mind did. He threw himself in front of her. Arms wide, the shot hit him in the chest. He stumbled back, breath stolen, knees shaking. Gasps filled the air. "No!" The princess screamed, grabbing him as he fell. The glowing fire around him faded. The warriors turned, both Veltari and rivals, eyes full of shock and rage. They saw the traitor still holding the weapon, and they moved as one for the first time in years. Both sides moved together, not to fight each other, but to protect the man who tried to save them all. The traitor was caught and dragged away, but no one cheered, no one smiled. They all turned to the princess, who held Ryan close. His eyes were half open, breath shallow. "I told you," he whispered. They wouldn't listen to words. She held his hand tightly. "But maybe they'll listen to your blood," she said through tears. The warrior stepped forward and knelt beside them, Veltari and rival clans alike. They lowered their heads, and one by one, they touched the mark on Ryan's back because they finally understood. The human didn't come to win. He came to give, and now the fire of unity had a new name. Ryan, the one who bled for peace. The storm had passed, not the one in the sky, but the one in the hearts of the people. Where there had once been war cries, now there was silence, not empty silence, but peaceful, full of meaning. Captain Rian lay on the stone floor of the Veltari den, his shirt soaked with blood, his breathing slow, but he was still alive. The princess held him tightly, her hands pressed over his wound, her eyes filled with fear. Around them, the warriors, Veltari and rivals, stood side by side. For the first time in generations, they stood not as enemies, but as one. The elder stepped forward and knelt beside Rian. He touched the human's hand gently. "We were blind," he said, "but you gave us back our eyes." The princess looked up. "He needs help," she said, her voice breaking. "If we don't stop the bleeding." But Ryan opened his eyes slightly and whispered, "Don't worry about me, just promise me. You won't go back to the old ways." The warriors lowered their weapons as a sign of honor. They placed their hands over their hearts. One by one, they repeated his name. Rian, 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 in the sky above. The hidden ship that had waited all this time sent a signal back to Earth. Mission status. Unity achieved, but Rian didn't move. He had done what he came to do later that evening. The flames of the great fire were lit not for war, but for memory. The clans gathered around it. Food was shared, songs were sung, old songs. From before the fighting, children who had never seen peace now danced under the stars. The princess stood before the crowd, her cloak blowing in the wind. She raised her voice. "This man," she said, pointing to Ryan, who now lay on a healing bed, "didn't come to rule us. He came to remind us who we used to be." The warriors nodded. Even the rival leaders stepped forward, removing their masks. One of them, a fierce general with scars across his face, said, "I once believed humans were weak, but I was wrong. Rion is the strongest warrior I've ever met, because he chose to fight with no weapon." The people cheered, not loud or wild, but honest, like the beginning of something new. Later, in a quiet moment, the princess sat beside Rian. His eyes were closed, but his breathing had become stronger. She took his hand and smiled softly. "You did it," she whispered. "You broke the chain of hate." Ryan didn't answer, but a small smile touched his lips. Days passed, and the clans began to work together. They rebuilt the broken gates, cleaned the damage, and began to plan a future. One where no child had to pick up a weapon too early. One where no warrior had to fight a brother he never knew. The Veltari Den became a meeting place, a place of stories and learning, not blood and fear. And at the center of it all was a black stone platform. Around it were carvings, new ones, showing Ryan standing between the clans, one hand open, the other holding nothing but hope. Some said he was a warrior, some called him a prophet, but the children called him the man who made the fire warm again. One evening, as the sky turned gold, the princess walked to the edge of the cliff. Ryan stood beside her, healed but changed. Not in body, but in spirit. He had come alone. But now he had a people, a purpose. She looked at him and asked, "Will you stay?" He looked at the stars, then at her. "Where else would I go?" He said. The stars above twinkled softly. And for the first time in a long, long age, there was no war. Because one human had walked into the enemy's arms, not to destroy, but to remind them what it meant to be together. And in doing so, he had become more than a soldier, more than a symbol. He became their spark, their bridge, their fire, together at last. They burned not with rage, but with unity.